Welcome to Fabric Monday. Today we'll talk about attaching files inside notebooks. How we do that and why. Let's see a demonstration. Let's see how we can attaching data files in notebooks. Here I have a note. The attachment feature is available because the Notebook Explorer was changed. We can attach resources on the notebook with the new Notebook Explorer. Some people will say, no, this feature already existed. True, this feature already existed. If you were used to develop notebooks using VS Code, you could be doing this a long time ago, but it was not accessible on the Portal UI. Now this attachment feature is accessible on the Portal UI. So I go to Resources and I create some folders. Let's create the first folder, Data File. Create. Now I will upload the file. Upload file. It mentions the files which are acceptable as attachment in a notebook. Okay, next I will upload the CSV file. You see, location CSV. Let's upload this file, and the file is uploaded. I have the file available to gather the notebook. The UI is very powerful. I can simply drag this file to my code block, and then it is. It is loading the file and making a display of the file. Let's analyze the code. It's using pandas to make the display, to load and make the display. Then read the CSV file, and the most interesting part and how it makes reference to the file attached in the notebook. It used the MS Sparkle Tools MB path to get the path of the notebook. And from this point, it completes the path using the built-in folder and the folder I created. I can execute this code, and there it is. I have the data from my CSV, the CSV attached on the notebook, and the data loaded on the notebook code and visible and accessible for the notebook code. That's great. Let me clear the output and get back to our PowerPoint. About referencing attached files, how do we make the reference to attached files? This we saw on the example script. We used MS Sparkle Tools NBOS to get the path of the notebook, and then from the path of the notebook we completed with the built-in folder and any folder we have created. So this property returns the path of the notebook. Needs to be built on strings for data files. Yes, needs to be. But if I'm using a library, not a data file, if I'm attaching to the notebook a code library, I can use import. And the import already starts from the path of the notebook, from this path. So I don't need to do anything else. I need just to complete the path from that point. Let's see an example about attaching a library on the notebook. Here I have a very small Py file making a very small task. It's calculating the square root from a number. This small library is doing just that, just an example, calculating the square root from a number. Let's go to Power BI. I'll create another folder, new folder. Let's call this folder lib, and I will upload the file. Next, and upload my Py file. Let me create another code block, and once again I can drag my Py file to the code block. In this case, what it will do? It will make an import of my Py file. It's importing the content of my Py file. Okay. Then after importing the content of my Py file, I can make a print and call the function my Py file is square root calc because the import created a namespace. Calc is square root. It even appeared on the IntelliSense. Let me show again. Let's see if there it is. Calc square root. And 900. I can execute this piece of code, and there it is. I have the square root of my number. So I'm attaching a library to gather my notebook, making the import of this library, and making calculations from this. Is this good? Is this bad? Let's get back to our PowerPoint and analyze this. Attaching file in notebook. Let's talk first about data files. What can happen if we start attaching data files in our notebooks? We start creating data silos. The users or the developers will start to attach small files, small CSV files, small JSON files to the notebooks, and we lose track about where our data is. So it may not be a good idea. Only useful in very special scenarios, special cases that will not generate data silos. That's what you need to evaluate. About Python models, allows organized development. So instead of creating a huge notebook with a huge sequential file, sequential code, we can break the code in pieces and call the libraries as we would like. We can attach specific modules. We don't need to attach modules to the entire workspace. We have this option. We talked about environments before, and we have the option to attach modules on environments and link them to the entire workspace. But in this case, we can make attachments to specific notebooks. But the Py files may be difficult to develop. The portal doesn't give any help to develop these Py files. We can make on-premise development using VS Code, but there are other problems related to VS Code development. And there is a security risk. What's the security risk? Any developer can attach a file which may be unsafe, and it will be executed over the lakehouse of the company. This brings a level of security risk for this kind of attachment. It's an option to consider if it is worth it or not. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next week.